Hey guys, so with Loa on just around the corner, the topic of solo raids is definitely a really hot one right now. With Stoops doing his podcast yesterday, making a big portion of it about solo raids, and just people talk about it in general, I want to talk about my thoughts on solo raids. Of course, solo raids I think are going to be an overall net positive for the game. I want solo raids to come, and I think it's going to be great for the game. I think it's going to be great for most players who are playing the game. But at the same time, there are definitely some risks that come with having solo raids if they're not implemented correctly. I think that if they're not implemented correctly, it could actually break the game. I think solo raids are kind of a make or break situation, and there are definitely things we need to consider as kind of downsides for bringing solo raids into the game and really try to mitigate those downsides however best we can. Well, however best Smilegate can. So, I wanted to talk about that today and give you guys a clip from my stream where we went over some of these downsides about solo raids and Party Finder as well. As always, we have these conversations all the time on my stream, so if you like having these conversations, please remember to swing by. I stream on twitch.tv/MisoXShiru every single night starting at 10 p.m. PST, so hopefully I see you guys there, but if not, hopefully you enjoy the rest of this video. Alright guys, see you later. Here is the one of the main reasons why there is issues with the Party Finder system and why there is a support, kind of like a support shortage, right? Here is the main reason why. I don't think it's because there are not enough supports in the game. I think that, part of it would be fixed if there were more supports in the game, but one of the problems is that there's just too many buckets. If you are playing, let's say you're a 1630 bard, right? If you're a 1630 bard, you can do 3 raids every week for your gold earners. You can do hard Theamine, right? Let's just say Theamine, not even hard mode or whatever, right? You're doing Theamine, you're doing Voldus, and you're doing Akan. Well, when you're running Theamine, you're not looking for Voldus and Akan parties. So if everybody is deciding they want to run Theamine at that point, there's going to be less supports here in Voldus. There's going to be less supports here in Akan. So every time you segment out the player base like this, you're making it so that there's less of that class or less of that support that is we're kind of like have a bunch of shortage in. We're making it less for other contents. Because if you think about it this way, right? Let's say every single person was running Theamine. They don't have the choice of 3 raids. Every single 1630 bard can only run Theamine. Well, in the Party Finder, it's going to be fucking popping off because every single support is looking for Theamine and nothing else. So the support shortage wouldn't really exist as much if you did that. Which is why I do think that there is an inherent problem with solo raids, even if not many people go into it at first, because if you add a solo raid, that's another bucket, because you can now, instead of 3 buckets, it's 6 buckets. Now let's say Theamine doesn't give it, right? Let's say 5 buckets. Now it's 5 buckets. Instead of just doing Theamine, right? It could be now Theamine, Voldus, and then Akan, which is the same as before. But now you have the solo versions. So now there's even less people in Party Finder and making it an even bigger problem. And then now everybody's going to start funneling into the solo raids. And nobody's going to be doing Party Finder. So I think that even if you give group like reduced rewards for like gold, it might just still be too enticing to do the solo ones, and you might end up losing out a lot of people. I suppose there could be another issue if solo raids are too hard for DPS for support. One group doesn't do them all. Well, I'm assuming that they're gonna be making it so that it's kind of like bots. You know, you're gonna be playing with bots. But I do think regardless of whatever happens, supports are always gonna be having a harder time to do solo raids than DPS. Because if you're playing with bots in your party, right? Let's say you're doing a full raid with 7 bots. The bots are probably not going to be DPSing as well as you would want them to. But if you're playing a DPS, you could probably start and try to carry the raid, right? So regardless of what happens and how they implement it, I do think that supports are always going to have a worse time in solo raids. why I am looking forward to solo raids, and I think they will be helpful, but I really hope that it doesn't end up being this situation that I outlined. Because if they make the solo raids just too good in terms of the rewards, like even if they gave it any form of like gold, right? Regardless, and this is my opinion. I know a lot of people might disagree, but I think that even if they gave it any form of gold, it might cause people to stop doing these raids. And then it's just going to make the people, like, let's say it starts off with 10 people, right? Well, that's 10 people less for the party finder. And that's 10 less supports for the party finder. Now the support issue is going to be even worse. And then what's going to happen is, well, if we're having a support shortage, I'm going to go do solo raids. And then that's another person out of doing group finder content, right? So it's just going to be like an endless cycle of people like, you know, not doing group content, going to solo content, making group content worse of an experience in the party finder, and then more people going to the solo raids. Solo raids equals solo raids with no jail, no fun to play. Give the same rewards, but make the grade last longer. That's how you get players playing out looking for group. No, I still think most people will play with other people, not to play themselves. I think that's really, I don't know. I think that to me, that's kind of wishful thinking. Because we humans are people that go with convenience. We are people that go with convenience and go the path of least resistance. And solo raids are that. They are easier to do, probably going to be, unless they're going to be extremely hard, then we'll see. But if they're easier to do or about the same difficulty to do, right? Why am I going to go risk getting jailed in this when I could just run this and not even risk running with fucking 7 other bozos? I'm all for solo raids, but there needs to be an incentive for go to party finder instead. Yeah, I agree. But the thing is, I do think that you need to adjust it so that the incentive is actually like way better. Like to a point where like the convenience of solo raids does not outweigh the incentive. Like it needs to be so good that I'm willing to risk running with 7 other bozos and getting jailed instead of doing solo raids. And what that level of reward is, I don't know. I personally still think that even if I get 10% of the gold that I get from this, some days of the week, I'm just like, fuck it, I don't want to do this. So I'm just going to go do this. And for every week that happens, and for every person that happens to, that's just going to make this experience worse. Because your party finder jails are going to be worse. Solo raid maybe equals no gold anymore. I mean, that's what I suggested, but I think a lot of people would disagree. But I personally think that I do agree. If solo raids gave no gold, that would be a good solution. Because why do you run raids? Well, it's because you want gold. But you also want materials. The newer players can run this and not, have to deal with other people and getting gatekept. And then the experienced homework reclears can run this and do that. But I can see that also making it so that solo raids are just a little bit too like unenticing for people, and then nobody ends up running this. So it's a hard line to balance, in my opinion. It's definitely hard. I see solo raids as an opportunity to learn the raids beside group content. If only the new players can access, then existing players that struggling enter raids are fucked. I mean, I do think that everybody should be able to access solo raids. Again, I think that solo raids should be an alternative for group raids for the materials. I think at the end of the day, we need to make it so that group raids are still way more enticing than solo raids in a way that makes it so that people only do solo raids as kind of a last resort effort. They're like, shit, I couldn't get in a raid this week, or I couldn't clear it. Or maybe it's like I got jailed in gate 2, and I'm going to use this to get out of gate 2 and go into gate 3. Like, that's another way to do it. But I just think that it's very tough on the game if you made it so that solo raids were good enough to where a lot of people are gonna do solo raids instead of group raids. Like, the thing is, in Korea, it might work out. It might work out if solo raids are very good in Korea. They might still have the player base to sustain a healthy party finder. But we don't have that player base. Every 10 people that does a solo raid that week instead of doing a group raid is 10 people that's not party findering for the group raid. And that just makes the group raid harder for that week. So it's definitely going to be a hard balance to draw. And also, I mean, we technically have rehearsal mode. Have you ever seen anybody use it? No. Well, I think the problem with the rehearsal mode is that it's just so different from normal mode. Like, it's too easy compared to normal mode. You can't really rehearse for it. And it doesn't give any rewards. It doesn't give any meaningful rewards. Like, if rehearsal gave the same rewards as Voldus, like mats, but no gold, right? Let's say, like, rehearsal clown gave clown mats and no gold, I think more people would do it. And you can only do rehearsal or normal, which is dumb. True. Issue in Lost Ark gatekeeping has to do with the amount of characters and daily requires sustained progression. If everyone needs to do one character, no one would care if you had to restart a couple times. But this game's all about efficiency. Sort of ish. Because, like, I don't think anybody likes sitting in a jail. Regardless if they're running one character, two characters, three characters, whatever. I think nobody likes sitting in a jail. Now, you could say it will reduce it, but I still think that it wouldn't reduce it by that much. I just think that the only way to reduce gatekeeping and, like, make people, like, better about it is if the raids themselves were less punishing. I mean, I think it has to do with it, like efficiency. The reason why we need efficiency more so than a lot of other games, because we are kind of like strapped for time. But at the same time, like, I'm gonna be honest, right? We're not even that strapped for time. There are so many fucking people who finish their raids on day one, day two. They finished all 6 of the raids on day 1, day 2. Like, a lot of people are like, I've been done with my raids since Friday. And, the reset was Wednesday, right? Like, I honestly think it is a little bit copium that people say that we don't have enough time to do raids. So, like, I think that even if we gave people, quote-unquote, more time, the gatekeeping wouldn't get much better, sadly. I do just think that regardless of whether or not you increase or decrease the amount of raids you have to do, I do think that people are just going to be going with, like, the most efficient way to clear the raids. Because, again, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody likes sitting in a jail. Regardless of how many raids you have 1 raid, 3 raids, 5 raids, nobody likes sitting in a jail. Because that's time spent that they could have been doing other things. And that, whether those things be Lost Ark or not.